The Out of Bounds Show, ESPN 105.9 The Zone. Shout out to Corner Market, 22 locations. Grocery stores throughout the state of Mississippi. Great selection of craft beer. Boar's Head. Premium deli meats, cheeses, and hummus. Corner Market. Download the app today. Your home-owned family store just got even better. 22 locations in the state of Mississippi. Corner Market. Here in Jackson, you've got Bellhaven, Fondren, and Northside Drive. We're live in the Bank Plus studio. Our guests join us on the Modelo guest line. We welcome in Tom Luginbill. Lugs, what's up, buddy?
How are you, man? I heard, was that Blake bringing us into some Bee Gees?
Yes.
So I got to ask you, have you seen their documentary on HBO Max?
I have, and it was unbelievable.
How great was that?
Awesome.
Unbelievable. And well, I don't know about you, and not to spoil the whole thing, but I had no idea that until they decided to become a falsetto band, nothing was really working for them.
I know.
Crazy.
And then boom, they blew up. I mean,
yep. Such a good documentary.
No doubt. Where are you, man? You out in rural Georgia or South Carolina or North Carolina? What's happening?
No, I'm driving back to Charlotte right now. I was at the lake in North Georgia, spending the last week and weekend with the family, and then now my son, he's a freshman in high school, so they've actually started their summer football workouts. So my wife's been juggling that until I get back in town, and now I'm going to take that over and have some father-son time. So just, evaluating players, doing a lot of radio. We've got one more event coming up. Our Under Armour All-America Future 50 event is this weekend down at IMG, so I'll be leaving on Thursday in Florida.
Okay, that's cool. Hey, then I want to run this by you as far as recruiting. We saw a tweet, and Jordan Reed, who is with the Draft Network, has visited 4 colleges this summer. And basically and I know you already know this, but he's talking about the shortage at cornerback and how he has seen 306 wide receivers to 43 corners in his 4 college summer camps over the past week. And basically, all the kids want to play wide receiver because of 7-on-7, and nobody really wants to play corner. So we're looking at a major corner shortage going forward, Tom.
And they're making a huge mistake. Wide receivers are a dime a dozen.
Yeah.
If you're 5'11" or taller and you have the ability to play corner, that's where the money is. They don't see it now. Eventually, they will end up seeing it. I remember Patrick Peterson, back in high school, he was actually Patrick Johnson, and he was a two-way player coming out of high school. He was an exceptional receiver, ball skills, hands, but he was 6 foot, he was 190 pounds, and he was one of those guys that figured it out. Everybody wants to play receiver, but if you have that skill set and you have some length in today's game, quit messing around at wide receiver and go over and play on defense, because that's really where the money is long term if you're good enough.
Man, I wonder where this is headed. I mean, the game favors the offense. Again, kids want to catch passes and touchdowns. I mean, that's a big number, Tom. 308 to 43 or whatever. 306 wide receivers to 43 corners. That's 7-1, Tom.
Well, and then add in the measurable to that. When I say measurable, if let's just say half of those corners are 5'10" or shorter, they're probably not going to have as many opportunities at the Power 5 level because it's so difficult to play on the perimeter without height these days. The days of a Darrell Green, where not every wideout was Julio Jones and A.J. Green and all of these guys, you can't match up unless you have some height. So if cut that number in half, and now you even have a bigger shortage. That's why, and you've heard me talk about this all the time, Bo, where there's 4 premium positions: offensive line, defensive corner, and quarterback. Well, those corners, if there's a 6', 6'1" guy and he has a skill set, I can almost guarantee you he will end up being a top 10 overall player on our ESPN 300 because you can't find them. They're not anywhere. So when these coaches and they're having their staff meetings and their recruiting meetings and they're trying to identify corners and they're looking at all these wideouts, I guarantee you they're trying to figure out which one of these wideouts is willing to go over and try and play defense, especially if they're 6 foot or taller.
Yeah. I just don't know how you – that's 7-1. I don't know how you correct that. And then you, as you said, Lugs, years from now it's going to devalue – well, it's starting to. But it will devalue wide receivers on their second contract in the NFL because GMs and owners are going to go, well, we can just pick up another guy for half your salary because it's a plethora of receivers coming into the NFL every year. Tom?
There's no doubt. I mean, and to be honest with you, that's already happening at the high school level as you enter into the college ranks. You know, you talk to most coaches, and I know this to be true as well, and I could throw a rock outside of their office and hit a Power 5 level receiver in any direction, but you can't do that at corner. And look at college football. College football right now, it doesn't matter if you're Texas Tech. It doesn't matter if you're Alabama. You could be TCU. You could be Illinois, Indiana. All of these teams have viable upper-tier players at wide receiver with NFL value. But how many teams have that at corner, not just with 2 or 3 guys, but with one guy? And that's in the college game. Look at the NFL draft over the last 5 years, and look at the height and the arm length of the corners that have gone in the top 10 or top 15.
Yes.
Huge common denominator. 6 foot, 6'1", massive wingspan. They time really well, and they're the most coveted guy on the board because you're trying to figure out how could I set a guy out there on the perimeter and hold up versus A.J. Brown, A.J. Green, Julio Jones, DK Metcalf. The list goes on and on and on, and you're not doing that with a 5'9" guy.
Tom Luginbill, talking recruiting, national college football analyst with ESPN and national recruiting analyst. He joins us on the Modelo guest line. Lugs, we've got a young man in this state that NFL scouts, pro football, they're all drooling over. Martin Emerson's 6'2". He's a corner. He graded out off the charts this year. I think this will be his last year in Starkville. They're talking first or second round, so there's not many of those as far as measurables. He's got the wingspan, all that.
Yeah.
And he could go make a lot of money because he's playing, a position that's in demand, like you're talking about.
Well, absolutely. And a guy like him, when you start getting 6'2 plus and you're playing on the perimeter, you're also going to be looked at as a value guy on the inside playing nickel because you now have the size and that dimension to play near the box if necessary and not have to change out your personnel grouping and leave a cover player that is big on the field on the inside. So that even adds, more value to what that type of player brings.
You're looking at first round, probably first or second round for Martin Emerson, who's 6'2", and a big, big dude for that position and can run and prove that he could play at a high level last year under Zach Arnett. Tom Luginbill on the Modelo guest line. Hey, last week at the end of our interview, I asked you who you liked as a national champ, and you said Oklahoma because Alex Grinch is really, turning the corner with that defense. Give me your other 3. It's early, but college football playoff, I would assume Bama and Clemson. But anyway, I'll let you go. Oklahoma and who else?
In some order of Bama, Georgia, Clemson.
Okay.
But I'll tell you what, man, and I know I'm going to be in the minority here. I think Clemson is going to have to retool quite a bit on offense. Oh, they're going to be loaded on defense. But I don't think you just automatically replace the production that is lost between Amari Cooper and Travis Etienne.
Yeah.
In reload mode for the most part, but they didn't have their three best receivers for the majority of the season last year. They should be getting them back. I think you're going to see a difference in approach on offense with how they utilize DJ because he's a Cam Newton style runner. So maybe more designated run stuff, but they are a very average team in the offensive line, and that really concerns me.
Ooh. And they played Georgia game 1, is that correct?
Game 1. I think Georgia beats them, to be honest with you. I think Georgia is the one other team in college football that stacks up with Clemson, if not better, on defense going into the year, going into the campaign. So I'm going to be interested to see if Clemson can pick up right where they left off. I wouldn't be surprised if you see them be a little bit more erratic at quarterback. I don't know if DJ is the same type of innately accurate guy that Trevor and Deshaun were. Time will tell. So it's going to be – and I feel like I'm in the minority saying that. I got to be honest with you. I think you might hear some more people start saying that too as we get closer to the season. But there's no question that from a roster standpoint, and yes, could you put Ohio State in the conversation? Absolutely. But we also got to acknowledge that Ohio State's going to be taking the field with one of three quarterbacks that have never attempted a pass in a college game. That's going to have some effect on Ohio State. It just has to. And when you look at the quarterback position with where Georgia is right now, even with Alabama and the limited sample size we have from Bryce Young, the players around Bryce Young are so good that I think that will help. So, usual suspects. And then what will happen, Bo? We'll get in that conversation again each and every around the middle of the year towards the latter part of the year about playoff expansion, because we're going to have Alabama fatigue and Clemson fatigue and Ohio State fatigue. And my response to that is, you can talk all the expansion you want. You can give more teams the opportunity to get in. I think that will lead to more blowouts than it will upsets.
You're probably right. Tom Luginbill, national college football analyst with ESPN on the Out of Bounds show. Let's stay with Georgia Clemson here. Okay, so Clemson has the better head coach by far and away, and probably the better staff. They've got more of the mojo and culture, but you're saying that because of Clemson, they're in transition on the offensive line. You really like Georgia to win this game right out of the gate, right?
Yeah, I do, and I think it's because I think there's a big edge right now between Georgia's defense, particularly their front seven, and as you stated, where Clemson is in the offensive line right now. And I personally, I think it's going to be tough for Clemson to run the ball. I do think that it will help Clemson running the football if they force Georgia to have to account for the quarterback being a true run threat. That's a way I think you can combat some of Georgia's strengths on defense. But you're right, the better in-game coaching staff, I think recent history will tell us that's been Clemson. It has not been Georgia. So this is an opportunity for a Georgia team to make a statement early. Because I thought at the end of the year last year, Bo, and I firmly believed that Georgia was one of the best four teams in college football at the end of the year. I thought they were better than Notre Dame. The problem is that they, I've said with you before, they were incompetent at quarterback for the first half of the season. And it doesn't matter how talented you are, if you have no production at that position, you're going to lose to somebody. And it doesn't matter how talented you are. So now that I think they will have sustained competency under center, Georgia's got a chance to be a real problem for people.
All right, somebody who evaluates all these guys, what can you let's switch gears real quick. Texas A&M will be breaking in a new quarterback. People seem to believe that Haynes King is the presumed heir apparent, but did not separate himself from Zach Calzada in the spring. Calzada.
Yeah.
What can you tell me about one or both of those guys, Luke?
Well, Zach Calzada, I can tell you, is probably in possession of one of the top 5 strongest arms I've seen in high school football over the last 10 years. he has an absolute cannon. The problem is he's also very, very erratic with accuracy, which really concerns me. That being said, Haynes King is more accurate and is the better athlete of the two, and I do think he will end up being the guy. The question ultimately for Texas A&M at quarterback is how much can the quarterback handle? That is such a labor-intensive scheme where so much is on the mental side of the quarterback's shoulders in that offense. I mean, that quarterback's got to be really, really sharp mentally, got to be able to process, got to know everything in and out. And I think as a younger player, that can be difficult to do. You're gonna make mistakes. You're gonna miss on some checks. You're gonna miss on some protection because it's all on your lap. So the question then becomes, with as good as A&M is at the skill spots, now they're gonna have to piece some holes together in their offensive line. But how much will Jimbo Fisher have to spoon feed the quarterback, or will he just be able to open the floodgates and say, I've got total confidence in this guy to run the entire show? Because that's what Kellen Mond could do. That's what Jameis Winston could do. And towards the latter end of his career, that's what E.J. Manuel was able to do at Florida State. How early can the quarterback at Texas A&M do it after Jimbo Fisher has, had a guy that was a 4-year starter that knew the thing like the back of his hand?
This quarterback, Haynes King, for A&M, could he be, if Jimbo were to just tailor it around what he can do? I don't know if Jimbo will do that, but if he did, it sounds like he's a mobile guy, dual threat. Really, could he be a big time playmaker at A&M?
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, he's a state championship winner at the high school level. Played with a high expectation level to perform. And listen, Jimbo handpicked this guy. This is one of his earliest targets when he first got hired. So there's clearly a belief in him, and so I do think they might be able to do some things.
Bam.
Necessarily, attempt to do with Kellen Mond.
Okay. So I want, again, they're breaking in it, but so is Bama.
Yeah.
I wonder if they could, because they're bringing 9 guys back on defense, and Elko's a stud. And I wonder if that'd be enough for them to really make a run this year with Bama breaking in a QB. And all right, I guess that's something to monitor. Clemson and Georgia early is going to be fascinating, though.
It's going to be awesome.
Yeah, that's a big time game, because I don't know if there's going to be that. I don't know if UCLA can challenge LSU, even though LSU has to go out to LA. I mean,
yeah.
Who knows? The gap is like 45 spots in recruiting. So what's realistic for Chip Kelly to do against Ed Ogeron the first weekend of the season, Tom?
Yeah, I mean, you got UCLA and LSU. I think unbelievably intriguing. Just early season matchups. The Oregon-Ohio State matchup, unbelievable matchup. Penn State-Auburn, unbelievable matchup. There's some matchups I think that are going to be very revealing. I mean, let's call it what it is. I mean, this is the off season of the new quarterback, right? Texas A&M, Ohio State, Clemson, Florida, Alabama. I mean, we can list blue blood after blue blood, and they're all having to play with new guys. I mean, I think that creates the biggest storyline that we've seen in an offseason of college football in a number of years. And the hope, I think, on behalf of overall college football fans is that maybe this opens the door for somebody else from a college football playoff perspective. I didn't even mention Notre Dame. They're going to have a new quarterback. We don't know who Michigan's quarterback is going to be. I mean, it's an awesome storyline that I think is going to play a vital role in the first couple of weeks of the season with some of your top-tier programs.
So Georgia and Oklahoma have to take advantage of what you just described.
No doubt. Georgia, Oklahoma, USC, with Keaton Slovis, who did not have a good abbreviated fall last year, really needs to play well. Whoever Oregon's quarterback ends up being, I mean, you're taking on an Ohio State team in Columbus with, like I said, a quarterback that hasn't played a lot of football, but is Anthony Brown good enough, if you're Oregon, to steal that game and try and bring some, I guess you could say, some integrity and respectability back to the Pac-12 Is Casey Thompson going to be the answer for Sark in year one? That's why, yeah, an Oklahoma, Georgia, some of these teams that do have Miami, if you will, assuming Derek King, which we all think is going to be 100% healthy, you've got to capitalize on really big games when you have a quarterback edge.
What if LSU transfer TJ Finley beats out Bo Nix at Auburn?
Well, it's interesting. I think that the signing of TJ Finley there says two things. Where it's either a reflection of what they feel like the strength of their overall quarterback room is, or it's an indictment on how the coaches felt about Bo Nix in particular coming out of spring. So my answer to that is simple. TJ Finley will either be the best number one quarterback they have, or he'll be the best number two quarterback that they have. And really, I mean, that's really what it comes down to. Here's the way I look at that. Is this was a guy, and after broadcasting the LSU, spring game and doing some homework and studying on LSU a year ago, it was very clear, halfway through the spring game that TJ Finley was going to be the odd man out. I think I told you guys that the week following the spring game is it's either going to be Miles Brennan and Max Johnson, and they really like Garrett Nussmeier. TJ Finley will enter the transfer portal. So if you're sitting there at number 3 and you started 5 games the year before, which you did, and you couldn't climb the depth chart against Miles Brennan and Max Johnson, then Bo Nix is going to have to be really, really ineffective. I mean, if you really start doing the math, that's what it comes down to. So we'll see how that all plays itself out.
All right, I think I'm ready now. I'll just go ahead and drive to campus and get ready for college football. Tom Luginbill, national college football analyst with ESPN, joining us on the Modelo guest line. Have a great week, buddy. Thanks, Lugs.
All right, take care.
See you, man. Lugs, burning up I-75, headed to back to Charlotte, North Carolina. How about that, Blake? Here's what that tells me. Georgia and Oklahoma, especially Kirby, better make hay. You got to take advantage of Bama with the new QB, Clemson with the new QB, A&M and LSU basically with new QBs to a certain extent with LSU. Ohio State with the new QB, Notre Dame with the new QB. Georgia has to take advantage, punch their ticket, win it, and go the SEC and go the college football playoff and see if they can grab it this year. I don't think they will, but this is a great opportunity for Kirby Smart considering what they have coming back on defense. JT Daniels got some good PT there at the end of the year. All right, if you missed any of the show, please go to Apple Podcasts, search the Out of Bounds Show, brought to you by Havana Smoke Shop. 2 locations, I-55 North Frontage Road and across from Shaggy's at the Reservoir. For your premium cigars, Havana Smoke Shop. See you tomorrow.